Let's be honest, everyone wants to be smarter. But most of the advice out there is, well, it's either so philosophical you'd have to be Socrates to understand it, or it's just, eat more blueberries. So today, let's cut through all that noise and get to the real stuff, the practical art of actually getting smarter.
First things first, what does that even mean, to get smarter? When we say that, it's not some big, vague idea. It's actually a bunch of very specific, very real things we want to be able to do.
It pretty much boils down to this, right? We want to learn useful skills, solve tough problems, master tricky subjects, and usually so we can make more money. But let's be real, a part of us also wants to flex a little bit. We want to sound intelligent when we talk, but, and this is key, without sounding like a total nerd.
And this is exactly where we fall into the advice trap. On one side, you have all this vague, philosophical stuff that's just not actionable. And on the other, you've got these simplistic little brain hacks. I mean, sure, sleeping more is great, but at some point you have to actually, learn something. So how do we bridge that gap? Well, it all starts with one super simple habit. But, and this is a big but, just doing the habit isn't the whole story, not even close. The main thing, the foundation for everything, is just to read. Fiction is amazing for building your vocabulary, and nonfiction, well, that's where you get all the interesting knowledge you can share. But how you share that knowledge, that's where most people go completely wrong.
Oh, we've all met this person. And if we're being really honest, we have probably been this person. You learn some cool new fact, and you're just waiting for the chance to drop it into a conversation. The second someone says anything remotely related, you jump in with that classic conversation killer.
And yeah, that phrase right there, that's the fastest way to become instantly unlikable. It doesn't matter if you're right. You sound like a know-it-all, and you just made the other person feel dumb. But don't worry, there's a much, much better way. And this is the secret sauce. This little switch in phrasing changes everything. Instead of correcting someone, you're agreeing with them first and then sharing something new. It is crazy, right? See? It turns what could have been a correction into a moment of shared discovery. You're bringing them along for the ride. So here's the bottom line. You teach people what you know without making them feel stupid. When you do it this way, they actually learn something from you, and they see you as smart and interesting, not obnoxious. It's how you can be intelligent and still sound like you, touch grass.
Okay, so let's build on that. Because that simple little trick for conversations actually reveals the core principle of this entire explainer. It's the one rule that determines whether information sticks in your brain or just disappears.
Here it is, the golden rule of learning. Unless you practice something, your brain will decide it's useless and just toss it out. Information without application is temporary. Your brain is ruthlessly efficient. If you don't use it, you lose it. Period.
This is the power of the 80-20 principle in action. That first 20% of practice, just a little bit of actual hands-on effort, gets you like 80% of the way to mastering a skill. The biggest results come right at the beginning, but only if you actually do something with what you've learned.
Think about it like this. This quote just nails the idea perfectly. You can watch 1,000 videos on how to tie a tie, but until you have an actual tie in your hands, fumbling with the loops, you will never, ever learn. Just watching is not learning. So, the only way to really learn is to combine the two. You watch the tutorial, sure, but then you have to grab a real tie and actually practice the steps as you watch. It's only then that your brain flags that info and goes, oh, okay, this is a useful skill. We should probably keep this one.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense for physical things, like tying a tie. But what about all the other stuff you learn? The skills you can't just go out and practice right away. Well, this leads us to an incredibly powerful technique, mental simulation.
Let's use a real-world example. You see a diagram in a car manual about how to jumpstart a car. Most people would just try to memorize it. But you probably don't have two cars just sitting around that you can go practice on. So what do? You practice it in your head. First, really imagine the situation. You're stranded in a cold, dark parking lot. Then, watch a video of someone doing it, but pretend it's your car. Mentally rehearse every single step, popping the hood, finding the terminals, connecting the red cable to positive, the black cable to negative. By going through that whole process in your mind, you've basically tricked your brain into thinking you've actually done it. And this is the secret. This is how you really truly get smart. You have to use everything you learn. You find a way to apply it, to make it practical, even if that application only happens inside your imagination. That mental rehearsal is the bridge between just knowing something and actually being able to do it.
Now, what's really wild is that this whole idea of simulation is actually the secret engine running our entire education system. And once you understand that, you can unlock the single most effective tool there is for learning anything.
I mean, think about it. What is a test? It's just an imaginary situation that your teacher made up to force your brain to believe that this piece of information is useful. But here's the problem, right? The second that test is over, your brain goes, okay, cool, not useful anymore, and promptly throws it away.
This explains why some ways of studying are so much better than others. Rereading your notes? It's passive. Mind mapping's a little better, you're organizing things, but it's still not really applying anything. Practice questions, though, they are the absolute king. And why? Because doing practice questions is a direct simulation of the test itself. So, if you remember just one thing, make it this. The #1 most effective way to learn anything, for school, for work, for life, is to simulate the actual situation where you're going to need that knowledge. Practice questions aren't just for checking if you learned something. They are the learning process. And this brings us to a pretty surprising conclusion. Even though we think they're boring, textbooks are actually the S tier, the absolute best format for getting smart fast. And now you know why. They're just pure information, followed by a ton of practice questions that force you to simulate using that information.
So the takeaway is clear. Don't just consume information. Use it. Apply it. Simulate it. That's the golden rule that separates temporary facts from real, lasting intelligence. The only question left is, what are you going to simulate today?